I'm Jake Lundberg. I'm a field CTO here at HashiCorp. I've got a, link to my LinkedIn here, or QR code for my LinkedIn if you want to follow this conversation out of band, or you can reach me at aquaman@hashicorp.com. I guess I could put that inside of there. But we're here to cover the HashiConf 2024 recap. In case you missed the conference or slept through the keynotes or had a meeting or something along those lines. One thing I like to do just for the participants inside of here, just kind of do a introduction of yourself. I am, again, Jake Lundberg. I'm in Edmond, Oklahoma, and my favorite HashiCorp product is Nomad, which I think is the unsung hero of the application sort of scheduling environment. And like I said, feel free to pop any questions in the chat. I'll either answer those in line or follow up at the end of the session. So, oops, well, that's not moving forward. Okay, so before we dive into the updates, I think it's really helpful to understand the overall strategy for HashiCorp and why we're developing the features and capabilities that I'll be talking about. So if we look at the application delivery process, it's typically broken up into four main categories. The application development lifecycle with tools like your VCS systems, GitHub, GitLab, and the likes. Things like Artifactory to store those artifacts once the code has been done. And then scanning tools, both sort of pre and post-processing for the code functions that are in there. And we pass that off into the actual infrastructure that helps to define and manage the resources that those applications live on. And then following up after that is the security lifecycle management to securely connect all of our applications and users to any of our necessary endpoints. And then lastly, all the observability tooling to help us really understand the core metrics around availability and performance of those applications and the infrastructure. And where HashiCorp fits in is that we're a leader in the infrastructure and security lifecycle management space. And as application delivery architectures become much more complex, our customers have tasked us with helping to reduce some of that operational burden and complexity. And that's where HashiCorp created the infrastructure cloud, is really to help those companies deliver infrastructure and security lifecycle management. And we do this all in a unified system that we call the HashiCorp Cloud Platform. And through the years of being a critical technology partner for some of the most respected companies and brands in the world, we've heard a lot of common requests. And so there are items like streamline our the onboarding and management of our infrastructure. So how do we get started in a very fast time to avoid any of your lengthy provisioning and configuration workflows? And how do you kind of eliminate the cost and overhead of actively managing that underlying infrastructure? We want to be well integrated with lots of different products. So beginning with like simple use cases of infrastructure provisioning or secrets management, and then extending that into more complex use cases like including image lifecycle management with the infrastructure and integrating more privileged access management workflows into those environments as well. How do we lower the infrastructure operational cost for infrastructure and securities cycle solutions? And the way that we do this is let HashiCorp actually run some of those solutions for you again in the HashiCorp Cloud Platform, so that we can abstract away some of the difficulties of managing. We realize that customers have a wide variety of tooling, and it's increasingly becoming more complex as we add in things like AI workloads and more automated SaaS-based products. How do we make sure that all of our products are upgraded automatically? There's a lot of folks who are attacking our systems, and one of the core fundamentals of software processes is how do we update that software to release some of those vulnerabilities that we have. HCP Cloud Platform or the HashiCorp Cloud Platform allows folks to do automated system upgrades, so you don't have to manage those on your own. And then how do we address some of the scalability concerns as our clients have infrastructures that are worldwide with high uptime requirements and high levels of resiliency? How do we scale those operations out across there and then allow for better availability and disaster recovery across all of the regions in which our customers live? Currently, HCP is located in North America and Europe, with plans to extend into Asia Pacific in the future. And then how do we create a common level of services between all these products that folks are using, including like Terraform, Vault, Nomad, and so forth, to allow you to have a seamless integration with any of your SaaS-based solutions? Over the last decade, And thousands of customers, we've come to see a very standard set of phases in cloud adoption. So stage one is kind of like the experimental phase. You know, you kind of think of these as like crawl, walk, run. So at the stage, typically, developers and operators are just kind of kicking the tires on some of these new technologies and providing some of these more tactical solutions. HashiCorp solutions, often used within that infrastructure and security space. But as folks start to move into stage two, and especially with highly regulated companies or folks that have sort of a large amount of employees inside of them, they have to take a slightly different kind of approach because all these ad hoc levels of technologies really increase the level of variance within those environments. And so we see firms start to really standardize their processes of automation and work towards tool reduction so that they can simplify the buying process as well as the way that we share all of our capabilities across a wide variety of different business units. And then as we get from centralization and collaboration, how do we work towards more self-service operations in the long run and adopt this across a wide variety of business units and a wide variety of capabilities within these various companies? And we realize that organizational complexity can be a big sticking point for folks. So how do we create this standardized automation that allow folks to more rapidly adopt some of these modern automation techniques, but be able to spread that across more complex organizational environments? So if we kind of like dig into the adoption journey of like where most of our customers go from, it's it is that kind of ease of use, that crawl, walk, run. How do we experiment with the sort of core assets, and then how do we kind of migrate these things into a more collaborative space, both in the infrastructure and the security space. So allowing you to publish golden workflows with folks, applying things like policy or least privilege access across a global control plane. And then lastly, some more of the more advanced use cases around, no code provisioning or self-service type provisioning, the ability to do long-term lifecycle management of your images and assets that are inside the cloud, remediating any kind of issues that you might have with any of those things, and then bubbling up all this information to your operations and security teams so they have an understanding of where the risk in your environments are at over time. And so, again, just kind of core fundamentals of how we see people that adopt our software over time. The vast majority of where we kind of focus our energies are really around how do we help you reduce cost within your environments. Cloud environments can be extremely costly when not managed properly. How do we reduce the risk of like breaches or helping you pass through some of those compliance gates a little bit faster? And then sort of lastly, how do we speed up your operations, allowing your developers to have greater senses of efficiencies as well as economies of scale as they begin to adopt these automation primitives as well. But if we look at some of the quantification of some of these risks in these various categories, 94% of organizations that were surveyed have some kind of amount of cloud waste inside their environment. I feel like it's even low. I'm going to talk to the 6% of the firms that have zero cloud waste, and about on average, about 35% of the average spend inside the cloud. And I've seen some extreme cases, even at my last job for a little while before we got our cost management under wraps. We were at 500% overages inside of those. As people get more disciplined in the cloud, we can reduce those costs, but how can you get those even further and really focus on increasing those margins? If you see that large number inside of there, your margins are probably nowhere near as high as what it is that you have inside your cloud race. So in about 27% of firms have had some kind of a breach in their public cloud infrastructure, again, increasing fines in the cost category and decreasing some of the trust that you have from your consumers as well. And then about 65% of the security challenges that we see arise from misconfiguration. So how do we reduce some of that human variance inside of those environments and the configuration infrastructure by creating automation as a primitive that people can align behind? So I'm going to start now and just kind of go into some of the releases that we have in the infrastructure line. And I'm going to start off with just a quick summary. So some of the major things that were done is HTTP Packer CI/CD pipelines. We've got Terraform stacks. I'm going to spend a little bit of time inside of there. The HTTP Terraform module lifecycle management and ephemeral workspaces. The ability for you to do automatic migrations with Terraform. My favorite product, again, is Nomad. So talk about some of the GPU enhancements that we have there. And lastly, a little bit deeper dive into our HCP Waypoint product, which is designed to be that internal developer platform for self-service operations of that infrastructure and application environments. Okay, over time, we've noticed that some common patterns of how development and operation teams actually work together. And sometimes those, we're at odds with the goals of the developers to move as quickly as possible, while that operations team is really worried about creating best-in-class infrastructure to run those applications in the most secure and efficient way. Where HashiCorp has been very good at day zero and day one operations in the past, we're increasingly tasked with solving day two through end problems like automated patch releases, managing drift within our cloud environments, and then providing for better cost controls. And this is why we've shifted to holistically look at infrastructure lifecycle management. Our infrastructure lifecycle management portfolio, which consists of Terraform, Packer, Waypoint, and my favorite, Nomad, helps you put a system in place so that you can have a programmatic approach to build your infrastructure and all the related images, deploy all those necessary resources, and then, of course, manage the lifecycle of that infrastructure over time. We're very effective at providing that central control plane for all infrastructure because we integrate with a broad provider ecosystem. Today, Terraform has over 4,500 providers. Yesterday, I said 3,000, and one of my SEs corrected me. And I was like, wow, 4,500 different providers. And those are the technologies in which you integrate. Last year at this time, we're at 3,700. Even I was even low at that particular number. And providers, again, are the API interfaces into all those technologies. So think the cloud service providers. That's probably 6 providers because each of them has multiple versions of their APIs. That's 6 out of 4,500. So you can control everything from networking devices to IoT devices, and even weird stuff like ordering Domino's pizza through the Terraform provider. We have over 17,000 modules in our private or public module registry, and then you can leverage more than 25 different run task integrations with partners that cover things like security and code scanning, cost control, and regulatory compliance. So again, the ecosystem within our infrastructure lifecycle management is just absolutely massive. The first announcement I'm going to talk about is the HTTP Packer CI/CD metadata. So this helps you track all of your metadata in an artifact registry. This became generally available back in July. And really what this does is it solves for the need for tracking and visibility into information about the creation and configuration of your image builds. And so this can help verify legitimacy and compliance within your application delivery supply chains. HTTP Packer now provides that ability to track pipeline metadata in the artifact registry, including the CI/CD information, such as the pipeline ID and job names, details on the operating system, VCS commits, and so on and so forth. And so really allowing you with that extended visibility into what that application delivery chain looks like. And this enhancement grants HTTP Packer the level 1 SLSA compliance, or SLSA, that was defined by Google. As we move into like kind of the more deployment stage, one of our main announcements at last year's HashiConf is that we previewed Terraform stacks, a new way to simplify infrastructure provisioning and management at scale. So this year at HashiConf, we brought stacks that are next generation of Terraform infrastructure as code into public beta. Stacks aims to address some of the limitations of our workspace-only approach, which leaks some of the complexity like our workspace settings and variable sets, and then the definition of the relationships between our more complex infrastructure architectures. With Stacks, we're reducing the complexity by defining all of these relationships in HCL code to allow for more rapid sharing and repeated use of more complex architectures with minimal friction. A Terraform Stacks is a single point of planning and updating for all of your infrastructure and the inputs and dependencies. And just kind of think of it as like a little bit more, rich dependency management and workflows around managing things like development environments or multi-region capabilities. Right now, HTTP Terraform organizations will have access to the public beta for use on up to 500 resources. And I have to stress this again because I think there's a point of contention I've noticed with some customers I've talked to is that the Stacks beta will only be available for HTTP Terraform users. If you're on Terraform Cloud, you can migrate into HTTP Terraform. If you're on Terraform Enterprise, also the same thing available. Moving into HTTP Terraform will allow you access to Stacks. Of course, as these things become GA, they may become more widely available across the other technologies that we have. As part of the Stacks and public beta, we have two new features solving for kind of a completely new use case. We have deferred changes, which allows Terraform to produce a partial plan when it encounters too many unknown values. I can't talk without halting any of your operations. So this helps users work through some of these kind of edge casey situations a little bit more easily, accelerating your ability to use Terraform for Kubernetes-based workflows. We also have orchestration rules, which allows customers using HCL to automate repetitive actions like automatic approvals when certain criteria are met. So if you know for sure that you're going to approve something based off from some criteria inside of there, I'm just kind of simplifying the ability for doing auto applies without having to YOLO completely and auto apply in the back end. So giving you that flexibility of maybe a policy-based management or an automated policy-based management approvals. Stack streamlines the provisioning and management of Kubernetes workloads by allowing customers to deploy in one single configuration instead of having to manage, multiple independent Terraform configurations. So think like multiple workspaces that you have to kind of manually tie together. How do you create a consistent dashboard forever to be able to do this? Just increasing the time to market for using Terraform for doing more complex environmental deployments. Next, we'll talk about the HTTP Terraform module lifecycle management that helps you improve communication for updates and especially for any of your modules. So modules are the basic unit for reuse within all of our organizations as they standardize on infrastructure code provisioning. And the module registry allows for that sharing of tested and validated modules to your end users. But over time, there's usually a need for folks to deprecate some of the older modules because, you've probably got many, many different versions and enforce updating those versions over time. So maybe you don't have some of the limitations that you had in those previous versions, especially when you're thinking about security and compliance issues. So this requires some kind of a deprecation process. We've got to have visibility into where those modules are being used and a way to push notifications to the users so that they can then migrate those modules at some later time. And so again, the concept of like we've updated these things, we've let our users know they have to replace them. And we call this module lifecycle management. Currently, this is in our public beta. I'm not sure about you, but if you've ever had your management ask you to reduce cost, it is a daunting task. You've got all kinds of disciplines around things like reserved instances and being able to decorate your workload so you understand where your costs are at. As these self-service operations in the cloud become increasingly common, customers often see a proliferation of workspaces and environments that live a lot longer than necessary because they should be short-lived because they're for test or QA or something along those lines. Another thing is that we have projects that may no longer be operating in the cloud. So maybe an application lived for like a couple of years and has been updated or migrated, and so a good portion of cost overages are just simply due to people not turning off those resources or right-sizing those resources over time. We originally released ephemeral workspaces at the end of 2023. And what ephemeral workspaces do is they help you set a time limit on infrastructure by using some auto destroy settings. it's not only great for cost management capabilities, but also reduces that management overhead of like actually, removing any of those unused or unneeded resources. Think about, like your kids turning on a faucet inside of your inside the bathroom or something like that, and just kind of leaving it running forever and ever. If you're not on a well like we are, you might get a larger water bill at the end, or keeping the lights on. I guess we all pay for electricity unless you're off the grid. And these latest enhancements provide auto distress settings that allow you to set things at the project level. So, traditionally, Terraform Cloud and HTTP Terraform had just the organizations and the workspace level. We've added in a project level for divvying up your organizations, and now you can set those workspace lifecycle management inside of the project level, which allows you to kind of think about maybe you align some of those resources that are going to be short-lived into very specific projects, and then anybody who puts a workspace inside of there knows that they have strict lifecycle management inside of there. So these enhancements, relatively new, went GA back in September, and generally available now. Do you want to take advantage of all these wonderful lifecycle management tools in HTTP Terraform, but you've got an extensive library of Terraform community? No worries. We've created a tool called Terraform Migrate to help you easily bring that existing community-based infrastructure over to HTTP Terraform, and including some of those lifecycle management features. It was like previous to do this tooling, doing that migration was kind of a lengthy process, but we've made this a lot more push button. So Terraform Migrate's going to be released into public beta, or is released in the public beta, and will provide automation for workspace setup, state migration, and even give you some examples of backend code migrations, again, to help you accelerate the capability of using some of those lifecycle management tools within HTTP Terraform. And if anybody's hung out with me or met me in the past or listened to the beginning of this webinar, I'm a huge fan of our Nomad product. A lot of that stems from the fact that it was an early adopter of Kubernetes. That complexity isn't always a best fit for a lot of organizations, especially those who are strapped for resources. And so Nomad's a great option for folks looking for an application scheduler, but maybe don't need the overall complexity of a Kubernetes environment. And so I personally think Nomad's probably the unsung hero of application scheduling. I can't, I can't explain how many customers come to me and say, we do these really, really amazing things for Nomad. And I ask them to do HashiConf sessions for this because it is really, really quite capable. And now, along with my gushing about Nomad, we do have the ability to assign quotas for GPU workloads, and this solves for key use cases for organizations with really computationally intensive tasks like AI fine-tuning or machine learning algorithms, scientific simulations we see used quite a bit, and video processing on those GPU systems. And so, in these scenarios, being able to schedule those workloads to multi-instance GPUs and then set quotas for allocation so that we have good utilization and optimization for those workloads that are available to you. So GPU quotas will be generally available in Nomad 1.9. If you're not running with Nomad, give it a chance. It's really a great tool. Next up, one of my other favorite additions to our portfolio stack is our application identity or internal developer platform tool, which is called Waypoint. And really, what Waypoint does is it solves for that intersection of concerns between your platform teams and your developers. The concept of templates make it easy to provision infrastructure on day zero when an application is first deployed. And add-ons make it easy to modify a configuration to address the changing needs of a workload. And so, the previous iterations of Waypoint were really, again, focused on those day zero operations. And then we've extended with add-ons. And then lastly, the actions that make it a little bit more easily to continuously manage the life cycle of applications with things like rolling updates or schema changes or anything that's out there. So think like once you've deployed self-service infrastructure, but you might have some regular automated tasks that you have to perform. Actions are really how you perform those on the back end. All right, so You see that all these announcements fit into, we're trying to really accomplish all these solutions around infrastructure lifecycle management. We want to, you want our organizations to let your developers move as fast as possible and focus on innovating with their software as opposed to focus on the management of those infrastructure assets as well. So just a quick recap. So we've got HTTP Packer, CI/CD pipeline metadata. That's generally available now. HTTP Terraform stacks and public beta again for any of those HTTP Terraform users. We've included the capabilities around module lifecycle management and ephemeral workspaces, and then added in this beautiful tool of Terraform Migrate to help folks get those community workloads into our enterprise products. One of my favorites, those Nomad GPU enhancements. Anybody have any AI sort of targets inside their environment? Use Nomad for maybe fine tuning some of those AI models that you have. And then lastly, allowing more self-service operations with HTTP Waypoint with the templates and add-ons and the HTTP Waypoint actions. All right, let's keep going on to the security lifecycle management suite. So a bunch of that we have inside of here, looking at the inspection side of things with HTTP Vault Radar, a bunch of different additions inside of there. We'll talk about some of the additions to HTTP Vault Secrets, Vault 1.18 being released. And then we've got a really cool capability within Boundary called Transparent Sessions. And then in addition to Consul called DNS Views. So we're going to jump right into it. The evolution of infrastructure protection has traditionally fallen into two lanes. So that's the reactive security that cleans up after finding mistakes, which allows for speed, but has inherent increased risk inside of there. And the kind of traditional, I guess, castle moat approach of thing, which we call gatekeeping, which basically blocks everything from the beginning and maybe poke holes inside of your environments to allow those applications and users to communicate. However, modern automated operations allows for security to be a little bit more baked into the entire application delivery chain. And that's where we're really focusing our attention, is to really help folks modernize their security footprints inside the cloud and inside of their automated data centers. Much like our focus on lifecycle management for infrastructure, we're also very focused on helping firms both to inspect, connect, and protect their application assets with our security-oriented projects, Vault, Boundary, and Consul. And the reason for our shift into lifecycle management focus is due to some critical changes in just general IT operations. One, IT estates are moving from static to dynamic cloud environments, which have different types of network boundaries and other challenges that come along with that. And we're moving from that castle and moat approach to a more identity-based approach for allowing our applications and our users to connect to things. There's a lot more investor and regulator scrutiny on cybersecurity risk and how that has an impact to your business. So a lot of external pressures, making sure that our businesses are safe to run those workloads. And then these challenges often put teams in a very tough position of having to trade off between developer speed and innovation for higher levels of security. So how do we keep those trade-offs in a way that allows you to have your cake and eat it too? And so really our aim is to make security a lot easier to bake into your delivery process. How do we allow for the capabilities of shifting left without actually stressing out our users in the long run? Okay, so 90% of the breaches are due to leaked credentials, and having a more code-oriented approach to application delivery and sort of managing those credentials at scale is an increasingly difficult task. And so where we've really focused our efforts are in this concepts of security, our secrets lifecycle management, and that journey generally starts with first finding those exposed secrets so that you know where your risk is inside your environment. And then once you've found those things, typically static secrets, you move them into a well-protected secrets management, and then adopt a more fine-grained control with rotated and then moving into things like just-in-time secrets or dynamic secrets that we have. But managing this lifecycle at scale is somewhat of a daunting task. And so really what we're focused on is enabling the automation of all these particular capabilities. A very, very common ask from our customers is that they want us to help them find where those secrets exist outside of a secrets manager like Vault in the first place. And so, almost every Vault conversation I've had over the years that I've been here at HashiCorp starts off with, "Hey, can you help me find these things?" And so we've actually created and we had an acquisition from a company called Blue Bracket and then integrated it into the Vault product suite as HCP Vault Radar. So, yeah, this product helps you sniff out where that risk lies, and it's currently in public beta, and we're gonna talk through some of the additional features that go along with this as well. So. Many of our organizations are sensitive to where the scanning is happening, and I think Percy, hopefully I said your name right, is asking the question. That's why I kind of punted this with this. So now we actually have a radar agent, so that organizations can scan their developer resources in their own environments and then review the results of secret findings in the cloud with their HCP Vault Radar dashboard. And just from a technology perspective, don't worry, we're not passing the actual secrets themselves. We're just providing you with a metadata list of where those secrets occur and have hash values to kind of let you know if there's any duplication or anything inside your environment. If on sort of extending that to help your developers take the easiest path to securing their applications, we're adding in pre-receive scanning, things like a pre-hook to the way that you submit your code into your VCS systems. And this really allows those developers to be notified when they've embedded secrets into their applications before they're pushed into those VCS systems. To complement this capability, in the case that a pre-receive hook misses something, we've included remediation guidance for how to properly secure those assets. So should they slip through those initial cracks, I think pre and post processing for helping folks, remediate any of those secret leaks that we have. Moving on to HCP Vault Secrets. HCP Vault Secrets is our fully managed vault solution, and it looks a little bit more like a typical cloud SaaS service. At HashiConf, we announced a few key things. One is general availability for HCP Vault Secrets and added in the capability for auto rotation. Auto rotation helps firms reduce the complexity of doing that rotation while allowing for the flexibility to rotate by specific sets of policies or break glass functionality with on-demand rotation. So if you notice a breach, you say, "Hey, rotate all my secrets." We've got a push button way of doing that. And we're absolutely happy to integrate this rotation capabilities with core technology providers like AWS, GCP, MongoDB, and Twilio. And much like the HTTP or the Terraform provider module, HTTP Vault Secrets helps abstract the integrations with our technology partners by using trusted relationships through technologies like OIDC. So integrations are a first-class concept in HTTP Vault Secrets, allowing for that more intuitive workflows around secret integration. So think about being able to do things like manage Terraform, right? Rotation's a greater fit for these kind of longer lived workloads. So you think maybe more of your traditional workloads that you have. But Dynamic Secrets really provides for that capability to create and vendor credentials in a just-in-time manner. It removes the need for rotation and really greatly shortening the life scope or the lifetime of any of those secrets that you have and allowing you much more fine-grained capabilities. So if you're looking to adopt more like NIST zero trust type of capabilities where you're constantly interrogating whether or not applications should have connectivity to the endpoints, anytime an application comes alive, it reaches out and grabs a secret from Vault. But actually what Vault does in the back end is that it connects to the end resources like a database. It inserts the username and password into the system. And then when that dynamic secret lifecycle ends, it automatically removes it from those endpoints. So think just-in-time secrets, but also the removal of those secrets over time so that they just don't exist in a system and you can't get leakage of those. Somebody gets a hold of a dynamic secret, say like a week after it's expired, who cares, right? It's no longer viable within those environments. So available as a public beta inside of HCP Vault Secrets. And are you tired of managing cloud credentials? I saw a couple of folks who are Terraform users. One of the challenges that comes with Terraform is that you have to be able to authenticate and authorize with the clouds or the SaaS providers that you're actually managing. But have no fear, we've allowed for that same concept of dynamic cloud credential workflows with a very tight integration between HTTP Vault Secrets and HTTP Terraform. So think of your workspaces are able to retrieve a set of dynamic credentials directly into those Terraform workspaces, really making it easier for developers to have that secure first mindset with the way that they provision their application infrastructure. In addition to investing in our lifecycle management capabilities, we've also been investing in enterprise capabilities for HCP Vault Secrets as well. So we've launched resource level role-based access controls so that you can set access levels based off from some kind of an application confidentiality metric, and then we allow for things like secret reader and app admin and some other roles inside of there. We've also introduced audit log streaming, so you can take all that historic data and then put it into maybe a SIM or any other processing systems, so you can go back and report on compliance and like other regulatory concerns. And because this is a core capability for HTTP in general, you'll be able to leverage these in other products like Packer and Boundary as well. So again, HTTP, the HashiCorp Cloud Platform, allowing for that holistic, sort of single pane of glass for managing a wide variety of applications inside that portfolio. So, again, if we think about overall security lifecycle management, our Boundary product is a way for your users to get connectivity to any of your cloud or data center endpoints, much like a traditional PAM type product, but very different in the fact that it's a proxy-based mechanism. So we allow your users to connect to their existing IDP, and then we proxy those connections to any of the assets that they have access to through a dynamic host catalog that we can help you maintain through a set of rules engines. So think like an auto scaling group inside of AWS, or even like Kubernetes endpoints, because those things could be rescheduled across a wide variety of hosts. How do you allow for those users to connect to those endpoints without having access to the network environments in which those things live, and B, having access even to the credentials in which you need to connect to that? So Boundary can help proxy those connections in a very, very secure way in highly dynamic environments, and supports some of those static environments as well. So think of things like, how do I streamline SSHing into any of known hosts that we have? How do I connect to databases? And even how do I connect to, maybe some of the networking devices that exist inside of your existing data centers? So there we go. So proud to announce that the Boundary Transparent Sessions is now in public beta. And really what Boundary Transparent Sessions does is it makes it much, much easier for folks to consume Boundary in general. So previously, you'd have to like go into Boundary and look up any of the hosts that you had access to. You'd have to like copy and paste any of the connection details into your browser or into your command line interface. And so it was kind of a clunky way of interacting with that. Transparent Sessions greatly simplifies the ability for users by just having them log into Boundary and then using the existing tooling and workflows to connect to their endpoints without having to dig through the GUI or CLI to determine what they have access to. We do this by getting in the DNS request stream. Like technologically, basically it's sort of like a midstream DNS provider or a resolver, and then we automatically map that to any of the host endpoints dynamically. The important thing, of course, to remember is that users will only be able to connect to anything inside of the dynamic host catalog. So Boundary's getting this major upgrade at HashiConf with transparent sessions, again, available in public beta. Just kind of overall reducing the complexity for how it is that your users manage this. And so again, just this is something that's been in the plan for about a year. One of the designers or developers told me about it last year at HashiConf, and I told him I wanted it as soon as possible. Obviously, quite a bit of engineering effort gone into this. Again, greatly streamlining the ability for you to use Boundary. So those are just a few of the announcements from the platform. The security lifecycle management portfolio has really been driving some significant innovation inside of there. But we also have a couple of extra capabilities that we have. One, adaptive overload protection for Vault. So the idea of being able to not take Vault down when you have a thundering herd of connection requests that are coming in here. We're innovating in the PKI space. So the CMP v2 protocol used largely in 5G operations, so automatic distribution of certificates for those environments. And then we've added the ability to do IPv6 capabilities within the Vault tooling as well. Consul introduced something called Consul DNS views, which just kind of allows you to only do DNS queries inside of sort of like a namespace in which you have capabilities of. So again, just kind of reducing the visibility with your application environment to increase the security inside of there as well. On the HTTP platform itself, we've introduced more fine-grained application level RBAC, and then of course the audit log streaming that I mentioned before. So again, just a couple of the additional features that I won't be digging too much into. So if I were to recap the security announcements, we've got HTTP Vault Radar in public beta with adding in the hybrid agent. Hopefully that that answers some of the questions around self-hosted inside of there. We've got some of the prevention workflows and remediation guidance inside of HTTP Vault Radar as well. HTTP Vault Secrets maturing in the areas of auto rotation and dynamic secrets, and of course integrating with HTTP Terraform to allow for dynamic-based cloud credentials. Vault 1.18 is coming out, and then we've got boundary transparent sessions, and then those Consul DNS views. And so how are we doing? Oh, geez, I got it right at 46 minutes. Thanks everybody for attending.